And ladies and gentlemen, are we live? Yes, we are live once again. How's everybody doing today on this Taco Tuesday, August 11th, 2026? And we hope it finds everybody well and in good spirits. And of course, you're in for another very cool radio show today. And the stuff I want to talk about today is stuff from a European perspective or things that just don't seem to get written about here. And I have no idea what that is, but we're going to share those with you in just a second. But before I start, I want to tell you guys that tomorrow we've got a special guest. We've got State Senator Chris Duncan coming from District 36, and we'll look forward to hearing what his vision is, how he got here, what made him run, and this is he's running for re-election, so he obviously did a good job the first time. And let's just kind of hear he's from down San Clemente way, and San Clemente, all those beach towns, people just kind of you can check them off one by one, but they're all really big communities. I mean, Dana Point, San Clemente, even Capo Beach, and that would be Capistrano Beach to everybody else. But anyway, yeah, we're kind of looking forward to hearing what Senator Duncan's thoughts are, especially environmentally. I can't. We're right on the coast, and oh, did I tell you guys that we are actually broadcasting from our secret location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California? And as let's open the phone lines here 949-629-3820 if you have anything you want to share or express your opinion about it or just vent. Give us a call. And I want to talk just briefly before you get started about some of the terms that the AI president, and when Bezos called Trump the AI president, I took that to mean absent intelligence. So if you're judging by the absent intelligence scale, then he's clearly the AI president. Okay, so having said that, these guys are really quick to throw terms around like communist and socialist and all this, and and they are called the Democrat Socialist of America. And and what people don't understand is what those words really mean and how they apply. And I'll throw a third one in there: is populism, because they always talk about what a populist uh, Trump is, and, and he's clearly not popular. So we'll sort out that populist kind of thing. And what else? But okay, so let's just kind of start with communism. And I don't know this to be true, but I'd like to think that everybody of a certain age has a some sort of uh, inkling that Russia was a communist country. And you see, what people miss about communism is in communism, the state owns everything. There is no private property. I mean, it just isn't. The government owns the factories. The government assigns you a house. They assign you how much you can earn. It really is an oppressive system. I'm not, it sounds like some ideal, like a couple of hippies in the woods at a commune. But to be a real communist means to give up, the kind of hope for a better life. With communism, the only people who get ahead are the party guys, and the Russian communist system collapsed under was it Yeltsin or Gorbachev, one of those guys, and you had the perestroika, the restructuring, all that. And to make a long story even longer, now we got Putin recruiting low level petty criminals and debtors. He scours the Russian credit companies for people that are like highly delinquent in their bills, and then suggests very strongly that they could, just have a much better existence if they just could join the army. I mean, everybody knows you're not coming back, but in the meantime, you get to hang out with the guys and shoot guns, and it won't be too bad. You won't be around too long. So anyway, and that's the gospel truth. These looking for debtors. He was looking for the DUI guys. Who's got cases before. Whatever kind of star chamber court system Russia has. Oh gosh. Okay. So anyway, with that in mind, let's look at socialism. Socialism is where the government undertakes certain functions, and like factories or grocery stores or things like that. And there's, of course, there's private ownership, but the state still marshals the money making resources, we'll call them. And then, of course, and now let's kind of chat about populism for just a second, because some of these things are more of a vibe than words can get across. Even though I'm kind of dependent on words to get things across. But the vibe of a populist is, I don't, and I tell you, history being what it is, if so much has happened in the world since 1960, and I don't think that's kind of a stretch. How in the world do they teach all this in school in 9 months? I mean, there's more and more events and more things to know about, and I just don't know how they cover it in the same time period. I mean, you kind of blink your eyes, and the Middle Ages have come and gone. So, and people rarely get the significance, when you present it that superficially. And another thing, while I'm talking about schools, and I should know this, but I don't. How in the world did civics get eliminated from a curriculum, from a high school curriculum? Please, God, tell me this. I'm not really sure how else kids going to learn like how things work or how things were designed and how they were designed to work. I, I, I mean, I don't have a problem keeping prayer out of the courtroom. I don't have a problem with a lot of staff, but civics, being left out, that I have a real problem with. Oh, guys, I know you can kind of hear this, but my my throat's getting a little scratchy as we speak this. So it's slightly cool today. It's slightly cool, low 70s maybe, and a little breeze. And like I say, for whatever reason, my throat's a little scratchy. So please bear with me. Uh, but the first thing I want to do is something like I say I rarely do, but I'm going to do it today. And what I'm going to do today is I want to read you two things from the Financial Times. Only because, and you guys don't come from London, it's my favorite, or my other favorite paper along with the New York Times. And this was headlined, or this is, like I say, these are opinions. And this one was called MAGA. Get it? MAGA. MAGA ignores Mount Rushmore's true meanings, which begs the question: what is Mount Rushmore's true meaning? Just out of curiosity, if anybody's been there, give us a call 949-629-3820. And I was there a couple of years ago. God, it was snowing. The weather was just horrendous. But I went to I went up through. Gosh, I forgot where. I think I started in Charleston, maybe, and then went up to like just kind of up and wound up in South Dakota. As a matter of fact, at the and there's a school there, a music museum, and they actually have an Antonio Stradivari guitar. So, in case anybody's interested, just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so anyway, Mount Rushmore. And we all kind of know the image, right? The presidents carved into granite. And we know they're fairly significant presidents. Otherwise, they wouldn't have their faces carved into granite in South Dakota. I'm going to try to keep my throat lubricated for you. But anyway, here's what Matthew Davis from the Financial Times, God bless his soul, had to say. In the 100-year history of Mount Rushmore National Memorial, Donald Trump is the only U.S. president who has spoken there twice. His speeches, given 6 years apart to celebrate Independence Day, used it as a backdrop to offer his vision of American history and exceptionalism. Okay, his vision. The sculpture of the four presidents carved into billion-year-old granite of South Dakota's Black Hills has become a symbol of President Trump's America. If the Make America Great Again movement had a totem, it would certainly be Mount Rushmore. Though there's not the space, Trump has repeatedly raised the idea of adding his own face. But it is also a deeply contested site, carved into land sacred to the Lakota Nation, and guaranteed as their territory under an 1868 treaty with the United States. Uh, we can only hope that that treaty is honored. Trump's embrace of the memorial is only the latest iteration of its meaning, which has been cast as everything from a shrine to democracy, to a symbol of freedom, to a representation of genocide in place of protest. I mean, this is a big deal. Uh, with each evolution, Rushmore has continued to claim the status of national memorial. But after Trump's second speech, it's becoming more closely identified with just one narrative, weakening its potential to reflect America's complicated history. Despite its political associations, Mount Rushmore was conceived as an economic project. South Dakota's commodities markets had collapsed. Had collapsed, and let's see here. Trump had collapsed in the 1920s. Seeking to diversify the economy, state historian Don Robinson originally proposed a carving of figures associated with the American West. Lakota leader Red Cloud, Meriwether Lewis, and William Clark, who led the expedition to explore the American West, and Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. And we know what happened to him. Anyway, Robinson hoped to attract tourists and boost the state economy. Yet, when he hired sculptor Gustav Borglum, uh, Rushmore transformed from an economic to a political project. And how did that happen? Well, he's going to tell us. Borglum was a talented sculptor with an image, with a large ego and controversial politics. He had come to South Dakota after working as lead sculptor on the Stone Mountain Confederate Memorial outside Atlanta. Now, the KKK had been refounded at Stone Mountain, Georgia in November of 1915, and Borglum's work and politics were closely enmeshed with the KKK. What could go wrong, huh? In 1925, the Klan fired Borglum because of money disputes. 6 months later, on October 1st, he stood on Mount Rushmore for its initial dedication, devoting it to the idea of American empire. Borglum wanted his work to be an homage to American expansion, believing the U.S. political system to be the apotheosis of Western civilization. It is this meaning of Mount Rushmore that Trump responds to. Are we surprised? The righteousness of manifest destiny and the American political project. Manifest destiny is kind of what led us to commit genocide against Native Americans, just for those of you who are paying attention. Both of his speeches at the site presented a sanitized version of American history that reflects this vision. Every country has monuments devoted to patriotism and our idealized selves. But where these are placed is often just as important as what they represent. And Trump's speeches have ignored the fraught history of the Black Hills. The Lakota call the Black Hills the heart of everything that is, reflecting their centrality to Lakota cosmology and identity. The Lakota believe that nearby Wind Cave is the site of their emergence into the world, and the Black Hills are full places with spiritual and historical resonance. But they're also central to Lakota politics. The 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, signed between the U.S. and Lakota Nation, gave present-day western South Dakota, including the Black Hills, to the Lakota. The treaty was violently broken less than a decade later, with the U.S. seizing the hills following the discovery of gold there in 1874 and the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. This launched a devastating period for the Lakota. The massacre at Wounded Knee in 1890. Remember that Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee? The theft of land and creation of reservations, the creation of boarding schools, and attempted eradication of their culture and identity. Can you want me to say that again? The massacre at Wounded Knee, the theft of land and creation of reservations, the creation of boarding schools, and attempted eradication of their culture and identity. I mean, this is us. All this took place in the shadow of Mount Rushmore, and the Black Hills remained central to the Lakota demands that their stolen land be returned. This history, the dark side of American expansion and exceptionalism, went unacknowledged in Trump's two speeches. It may seem Mount Rushmore has come full circle from Borglum's initial dedication in 1925 to Trump in 2026. But what monuments represent is rarely static. What seems a symbol of Trump's America as it celebrates 250 years since the Declaration of Independence may mean something entirely different at the 300th anniversary. So, guys, I know you can't be surprised at yet another, how can I put this? Another example of, uh, of Trump's ignorance, but there it is again. It's just when you're ignorant and don't make any attempt to hide it, it's really bad. And I'm just it's just bad. Anyway, moving right along, and Gideon Rahman has another opinion in the Financial Times section, and this one was even better. And I said, if I could write as well as these guys, or condense and get it across in nearly the same way, I would do that. But I can't do justice to their thoughts and to try to condense it for you. It's I feel like I would be giving you margarine when you deserve butter. So with that in mind, let's wet the old throat and plug on. Okay, now do me a favor. Uh, put the put your hands over the kids' ears. We don't want them to hear this. And for our watchers and listeners, turn the volume up because this is going to be a really big deal. Except if you have kids in the car. If you have kids in the car, well, hopefully they're plugged into something else. They are kids these days. So the second thing from the Financial Times is, and I could not make this up, Trump and the failure of the FAFO doctrine. And I'm sure we all know what FAFO. I didn't know it for a while, but apparently it's F around, and that's EFF around and find out. It's kind of like a dare, okay? And is there a tactic that's more BS and more Trump than like bluffing like that? Oh, even though we're short on these missiles, we got a boatload of ones that can still, XYZ cause this kind of damage. And I'm going to tell you, I don't. I mean, if I was Iran, I'd be doing the exact same thing. You know, doesn't the aggressor pay for the damages? And weren't we the aggressor? I mean, I'm not really. God knows I'm not happy about spending money like that. But if we broke it, don't we have some obligation to fix it? And but the question is, and if you were fixing it, would you leave it to Trump to fix? And the answer is, of course not. And since this show has been kind of about him so far, I want to pose a really horrible question to you. And I'll say number and call in. Lines are open 949-629-3820. And what the question I want to ask is, uh, Joe Biden's cancer has spread to his bones. I can't imagine how painful that is. But regardless of that, that means that death is fairly imminent. I don't know how long people last, but I doubt it's more than like 6 months, maybe a year at the outside. So let's suppose that President Biden goes to the Heavenly Father, and I say he's done a lot in his lifetime, contrary to what Trump wants you to believe. And my question to you is this: will Trump deny Joe Biden a state funeral? I mean, to my way of thinking, beyond the shadow of a doubt. Uh, I mean, there's always a possibility that he would, have one and give a horrible speech, but I don't think he'd even give him the state funeral. What do you guys think? Can you bet on this on the Cauchy? What do they call those things? It's not gambling, but it's kind of like gambling, and how they exactly do this. I mean, their lawyers must be so good. And doesn't Chris Christie lobby for those guys? Or he lobbies for some, or maybe it's just the city of Las Vegas. God only knows. Uh, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get into toothpaste. Let's get into the Trump and the failure of the FAFO doctrine. You wouldn't have stuff like that with anybody else, would you? And we had, I mean, why did you guys vote him in? Please tell me why. You had your choice between the smartest girl in the room and a dim-witted frat boy, and you chose the dim-witted frat boy. It's like you couldn't choose the nice, sweet, and smart girl to or woman to do the job. Well, anyway, keep in mind, guys, you are responsible. You are enablers, just like you pompous senators who caved and voted for Todd Blanche's confirmation. You guys are, I mean, he ruined you guys. And let's get back to the FAFO doctrine, and let's talk about them in some objective way, at least of Iran. The Iranians may calculate that while those demands seem far fetched, the U.S. could eventually make far reaching concessions to get out of Trump's war. So he wants out. How badly is he going to sell out to do it? That's the question. These malign developments flow directly from the amateurish and hubristic way in which Trump made the decision to go to war. And listen to this, please. The U.S. president allowed himself to be convinced by Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's leader, that regime change in Iran was within reach. Trump waved away warnings. Let me repeat that. Trump waved away warnings from his own staff that the Iranians might close the Strait of Hormuz. He failed to carry out what should have been routine consultation with regional and European allies. And here we are. FAFO indeed. The only real surprise is taking so long for Trump's flaws to catch up with him. Isn't that the truth? The president's critics used to be accused of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome when they suggested a decision-making style based on vanity, vengeance, vibe, and self-dealing would end in disaster. But the reckoning seems to finally have arrived. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Okay. So where were we? The current crisis. However, current crisis is resolved, there are likely to be long-term consequences for U.S. foreign and security policy. Previous administrations guarded American credibility jealously. They insisted that when a president spoke, the world must take his word seriously. But Trump shreds American credibility on a daily basis. Trump shreds American credibility on a daily basis. He's stuck in a loop in which he threatens to devastate Iran one day before announcing shortly afterwards that peace is at hand and Iran is begging for a deal. The credibility problem is not just about the erratic rhetoric of the president. It's an open secret the U.S. has badly depleted key munitions such as cruise missiles and Patriot missile interceptors. Even if the Trump administration were to decide to follow through on the president's threats, it might have difficulty sustaining high-intensity military operations in Iran. Gaps in missile defense also mean the U.S. has no real way of protecting the key infrastructure of its Gulf allies from Iranian attacks. Some American allies are thinking about new ways to secure themselves. Then get this: Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan have just announced a new defense pact. And guess what? If we ain't there, we don't have any influence. So, the effect of Trump's rhetoric and erratic decision making. Can I repeat that, please? The effect of Trump's rhetoric and erratic decision making extends beyond security into economics. I was startled recently to hear an Asian money manager say that she increasingly thought of Trump's America as an emerging market. I mean, what kind of an insult is that? Uh, when I challenged her, she pointed to sudden and arbitrary changes in policy, a fear that foreign investors may be discriminated against, and that the deep involvement of the president's family uh, and friends in business. All this, she suggested, might make foreign investors warier of holding U.S. assets. That's, again, not very helpful. In response to that kind of critique, the Trump administration can point to the fact that in the roughly 18 months since he returned to the White House, foreign investors have continued to pour money into U.S. equities and assets. There are some exceptions. I'll talk about that in a minute. The depth of the U.S. financial markets remains unparalleled, and the American economy continues to grow much faster than the Europeans. But there are warning signs. The dollar is the world's reserve currency, and yet the U.S. is still running a budget deficit, roughly 6% of GDP a year, and it needs foreigners to buy its debt. Even in Greece, which until recently was a byword for fiscal incontinence, now borrows more cheaply than the U.S. Can you imagine that? Greek, Greece is more highly rated than the U.S. As far as their bonds. I mean, I'm shocked and I'm really upset. Even Greece, the annual cost of servicing America's federal debt exceeds the Pentagon budget and is rising fast. But the Trump administration seems to have no serious plan to bring this situation under control. At some point, there'll surely be a reckoning here, too. Debts and deficits is one subject where FAFO is the right slogan. That means that we're about to find out something, and it ain't good. And what we're going to find out is the world is more and more not buying our bonds in the volumes they did. And you know what happens? I'm sure I've explained the bond market a few times, but let's say you're the U.S. and let's say you want to finance whatever it is you want to finance. So you have have a treasury sale or auction of T bills, and let's say they're $100,000 increments. And let's say under normal times, the U.S. might pay 30%, 4% interest. But when people quit buying the bonds, how do you get them to start buying the bonds? Well, the answer is you offer a bigger reward, you increase the interest rate. And the reason, and that difference, that delta reflects the uncertainty that investors have about America that they apparently don't have about Greece. I mean, if you look around, and I really am, it's too bad I'm preaching to the choir here, but I really would love, some, MAGA guy to explain this to me because it just all seems like, just BS. And, my mother had this thing about a place she worked, and I won't go into detail, but there was one guy there, and his philosophy, his job keeping philosophy, was if I can't dazzle with brilliance, I'll baffle him with BS. That's hardly the way to be productive, pal. But anyway, that's what's going on here. Trump is just peddling BS as fast as he can without any regard to the truth of the statement. It's pathological. It just, when, and I tell you something else between you and me, when you're the smartest guy in the room, you rarely need somebody else's opinion. So, of course, Trump substituted his war knowledge and experience for that of the Pentagon, and so the Pentagon was wrong, and he's right. Okay, the Pentagon is wrong, but he's right. And this is absent any sort of information. Why? Because he's the smartest guy in the room and doesn't need it. And even if he wasn't the smartest guy in the room, he don't know how to read it. So, there's been more fun made of Trump's inability to read and staff attempts to communicate through like cartoons or comic strips and I got to keep saying thanks Republicans. Oh, I got to say two things. Thanks Republicans, and I want to say something that I try to drum home a lot during each show, and that is I think Trump has a credibility problem. Hmm? Is that not the understatement of the year? I mean, the guy, you hate to say it, lies like a rug or a dog or whatever lies, he does it. And it doesn't matter. How about on the golf course where he'll, kick somebody's ball out of the way? I read where he golfed with some junior golfer, and the junior golfer was trying to take it easy on him. And finally, the junior golfer just, made sure that he won the tournament. And Trump was just so hugely pissed about this. Uh, but, some people are just inherently unlikable, and somebody like Trump has, developed unlikability to an art. Oh, maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's a real artist underneath it all. Yeah, well, so much for that. Now, back to this bond stuff. Now, I mention all this because this is crucially important. I mean, the world finances us. And don't forget, Trump added 10% to the deficit himself. It's like he added 3.8 trillion to the $35 trillion deficit. 40 trillion, almost $40 trillion. One guy who preaches, and whose populist approach says, "Oh, they're bad guys in government, and I'm going to fight them for you." That's the guy that stole the money to finance his tax cut, which was obscenely tilted towards the wealthy, and had the effect of reducing government health services, reducing food benefits, reducing just everything. I mean, he didn't eliminate the social safety net, but he certainly made the holes a lot bigger. And of course, November 2nd is going to tell the tale, won't it? At least initially. And November 2nd is going to tell a few things. It's going to tell what kind of devious stuff Trump is planning. Now, it's also a possibility, however remote, that he may do nothing and just bide his time until 2028 and then having the big election denial stuff when he's on the ballot. But, it's kind of like when I was just discussing Trump and the FAFO doctrine. I don't think the guy's like really patient. So you would have to bet on him flying off the handle yet again. And oh, by the way, did anybody catch that Trump address, national address on the Iran war? Anybody see that? Yeah, me neither, because there was none. And at the very least, don't you think we're owed a fireside chat, or do you just know you're just too wrong and too stupid to get up in front of people? And I think that would clearly be the safer bet. Uh, but like I said, we are where we are. So let's work hard. Let's change the situation. But anyway, moving right along, let's still hang with the Financial Times for a little bit. And Wall Street, and you guys have I'm sure you have some conception of how big AI is. And the bigger a technical project is, the more expensive it is. And I mean, these numbers are just incredible. And for instance, Wall Street big names are going to join NVIDIA to build a $500 billion, $500 billion AI financing package. And of course, this is like a big deal. But there's this huge data center push, And there's just this feeling that if they don't build it now, they won't be able to. So of course that you know throw enough money at it, and it'll happen. So with that, of course, chipmaker shares went down a little bit, and they need to bring in private capital because 500 half $1 trillion is a boatload of money. And who do we have, stepping up? Well, this ought to give you an idea of how serious this is. How about Apollo Global, rather, Blackstone, BlackRock, uh, Brookfield, and Goldman Sachs, Jesus, and KKR. If Goldman gets involved in a deal, I usually want in on it. Those guys are just have an uncanny track record of doing well. Of course, it's they would step on somebody's ant in front of the trading on the trading floor to get a quote in, but you know it makes them a boatload of money, and which is exactly what everybody else has to watch out for. And well, I'm going to transition into climate change, and I'm going to do this so smoothly you won't believe the segue. China has a new shipping line, and what they're doing is they have weekly uh, passages as the Arctic Ice Silk Road opens up. Why? Because as the Arctic's emerging as a viable alternative to traditional shipping routes, uh, a this is sad. A melting polar cap, a melting polar ice shortens the trip. How about that? The Arctic is melting because of global warming, and it still gets denied. And not only does it still get denied, but the Chinese accelerated by steaming ships through it. Uh, if there's a more incompetent leader than Donald Trump, please tell me, do we have? That must have been the vote. We must have been looking for the most incompetent guy because he won. So you guys got the incompetent guy. How I will never ever. I mean, you just gotta shake your hand. But and like I said, while we're hanging out in Europe for a little bit, Ukraine struck an oil refinery and facilities like 1,200 kilometers into Russia, and I think that must be like 700 miles. Uh, and Putin's these refineries are just killing him. I think he's just in such a panic; he has no idea what to do. I think he's ultimately resolved himself or pacified himself by thinking that when it gets this really bad, I'll just nuke Europe. And would he do it? You know, I'm sure there's like at least a 50-50 probability. I mean, he said if Russia's existential status was threatened, that he would go nuclear. And you have to admit, the Ukrainians seem like I mean, Ukraine's never going to march them to the to the peace table and make them sign whatever document it is. Ukraine suffered heavily, and we are responsible for that. What the European Union is responsible for that. We should just send them everything they wanted every time they asked for it, and cranked out the arms factories to replace them. I mean, how stupid is that? To go through your stockpile of stuff and apparently not knowing how low you were until you got to be too low. Uh, I mean, is that like how the Pentagon's run? I don't think so. I think when you got like, generals in there that kind of know the deal, I think they run it kind of differently. I think they might run it like better. And I think every time we try to bring in an outsider, as well meaning as it is, it never works out. And I'm going to tell you, I respected the living daylights out of Jimmy Carter, but I don't think his presidency was a highlight. It might have been a moral highlight because men like Jimmy Carter don't come along very often. And if you're not familiar with him, you might want to look him up. And also, I want to mention one other political figure you might want to read about, and that's former Governor Jerry Brown, son of Pratt Brown. And one of the guys in the LA Times had written his biography a couple of years ago. And if you were to read it, you would swear that he's more conservative than most Republicans you know. I mean, he was the farthest thing from a stark raving liberal, give it all away kind of person you can ever imagine. I mean, don't forget the guy. I know he's a Jesuit. I think he went to Georgetown, or maybe not. Maybe he stayed out here. But been a long time since I read the book. But one of his guiding principles was that government can't fix every problem, and even if it could, not every problem deserves a law. So he was just a real practical guy, and I'm sure history will be very kind to him as it will be to Al Gore, who, and I'd say this daily, Al Gore was right about everything, wasn't he? And that's kind of just killed Trump. But so and I brought this up the other day. We all know about that Natalie Harp woman, the human printer that follows Trump around with positive stories to keep his ego up or whatever it is all day long. She's always there, right? Now, I'm going to submit to you that as the president has a credibility problem, that so might some of the news sources that Natalie Harp takes her positive Trump stories from. In other words, they may not be true. They're clearly not fact checked. I mean, she comes up with something with a couple of smiley faces, and it's here, boss. Uh, but so it's not fact checked. So God knows what he's getting. And my theory from here is that she is actually feeding Trump disinformation daily. She's constantly painting him in this worldless light that just ain't there. And I mean, doesn't that seem something almost treasonous about this? Somebody following the president around, boosting his ego with things that aren't true, so he can keep doing things that are illegal because he's too stupid and wants nothing but power. I don't think I'm that far off. If anybody's got thought or wants to kind of vent on that, let me know. 949-629-3820. And, ooh, did we accidentally close Zoiper? No, we didn't. Just checking. I would hate to actually close Zoiper because Zoiper is how we communicate. And that's why I keep giving you the phone number 949-629-3820. And oh, by the way, if anybody has let's see how we can do this. We may just have to minimize that for now and call it up when we need it. Anyway, Zorper 5 is a really cool name. It of course works with the interface to let me do this, but it's anyway 949-629-3820. So have I depressed you enough today, or what's that car thing? But wait, there's more. And I say Ukraine is just devastating country. Russia's too broke to fix it. And if we push the Iranian economy off a cliff, then they don't have money to repair their stuff, which we should pay for. So, but against this, and I forgot how many thousands of people about Putin's loss. I'm sure it's over 1 million at this point. But Putin is scouring. Of course, he's running out of soldiers. He's getting killed and maimed and everything else. So the headline was Putin's war machine scours the country for new recruits. I have to kind of laugh because it's more like for self-immolation or something. You're not exactly volunteering for a a weekend at the beach in Albania or wherever it is, or sailing on. You won't be sunning on a boat in Greece. When you sign up for this war, and it's really nice when things are of somebody's free will. But I bet you that if Putin went around or his guys went around and just hung out and pulled out just I don't know liter after liter of vodka, that I bet they could get a really good many recruits. They may really like stink in the morning, but you don't really care, do you? You just need somebody else to, to go through the human meat grinder that war is. Uh, so, guys, like I said, with all that in mind, I hope you kind of enjoyed today. We'll. Guys, I forgot. We actually have good news. We have really good news, or semi good news. How about that? The U.S. demand for hybrids means more Asian hybrids are selling. And of course, it'd be better if they were, whatever hybrid, or maybe not. It looks to me as though opening up the American car market. Uh, I mean, it clearly made things tougher, and it clearly improved competition. And I think that's the kind of environment that capitalism kind of needs. Uh, Now, I tell you, but I want to go back to this bond thing for a minute. And how many of you out there own any T bills or T bonds? You have any government municipal securities? Did you float a new, I don't know, water issue, a new library, whatever it is? Did the city go to the problem of floating bonds and selling them? And let's see, most of the time it was kind of a traditional, kind of a patriotic thing. And then after World War II, we were the world, and people just followed us. We were the source of good. I mean, think about this. In the mid 40s, we rescued people who were lined up in cattle cars to die. But this was after 6 million had already died, and we liberated death camps. Is that not the height of human? I don't know, the reason for being. I mean, you save somebody's life, you save tons of lives. And let's be honest, the punishment never rarely fits the crime because there's like when you got 6 million people dead, you can't necessarily hand out 6 million death sentences or anything like that. And don't forget, you had the Germans escaping to South America, Brazil. Some of them even went to Switzerland and to the Vatican. Uh, but yeah, we were good guys. And it's funny. Even if anybody has any inkling of Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and all the cowboy stuff, they were always what traditional American heroes. They told the truth and stood up for good, and kind of like Superman, truth, justice, and the American way. Uh, well, I see. You got to kind of wonder about that now. What kind of replaced truth, justice, and the American way but greed, greed, greed. And I'm sure I've told you guys that the most dangerous place in D.C. is between Donald Trump and a dollar. Oh, and but anyway, about the bond thing. Not long ago, Japan, we kind of helped Japan buy some yen the other day. But a while back, Japan wanted to get our attention about something. So, like in the middle of the night over here, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and you start hearing these bells go off different places. The Japanese started to dump our bonds, which is the equivalent of saying we don't trust the U.S. to pay us. The United States, we don't trust them to pay us. Think about that. Uh, I mean, we were a beacon of light, and now people doubt our ability to pay our debts. And Trump does this. He did this with all of his bankruptcies before. It's the same pattern. Uh, he acquires something, whatever that something might be, loads it up with debt, and you know what happens after that? After that, he blows his nose and declares bankruptcy. And what he's done this like a cajillion times. And why people let him get away with it, I mean, I'll never know. And anyway, that's another battle we'll have to fight together. Guys, it's like I say, closing in on one, and I'm starting to sneeze, so I'm not gonna make you watch me sneeze. But what I would like you to do is tune in tomorrow at noontime. Democracy Radio Network, the Abby Kaufman Show. We've got State Senator Chris Duncan coming from San Clemente, District 36, and we're really looking forward to his thoughts, particularly his environmental thoughts, because he is in San Clemente. And as a matter of fact, there was some part of the train that goes like from Irvine to San Diego was not going further south or farther south than I think Dana Point, because some high tides were affecting the tracks. So it'd be good to find out exactly what's going on with that. I don't know. I've never taken the train to San Diego, but I kind of like to. It lets the stops are like in North County and Encinitas and Solana Beach, which is fine with me. And you can go all the way to town, if you want to do that. But that's kind of pointless. But I have taken the train from LA to Santa Barbara, and I will tell you the Union Station is a very fine place. And if you get a chance, take the train, get out of the car. What is it? Leave the driving to whoever it is. And guys, as I kind of swallow hard and try to make it through, I can only say one thing, and you know what that one thing is. Thanks for tuning in, watching, listening, the whole deal. Abby Kaufman, your somewhat savvy, politically minded host, saying, and what do we always say about this time? Roger.